Well, let's see. We'll wait for, here we are on YouTube. Good morning. This is Jessica Magoch, the CEO of JPM Sales Partners, teaching you everything I learned recruiting, training, and leading a $100 million sales team for a B2B commission-only startup sales team. And today I wanted to talk to you about something that has been on my mind as diagnose problems, and then I stand in as the sales therapist to cure all of them. And we focus on direct sales teams for high ticket products, mostly in the tech and software space, but also in coaching and consulting, teaching you how to convert leads to sales. That is my specialty, is that part where the closing happens, the magic happens. So if that's a challenge for you, I'm the person to reach out to. If that's a challenge for your team, if you'd like to up your closing ratios, that's what we do. And so in that, there's a lot of people come to me, and a lot of times I have people come to me asking about sales recruiting. Can you help me find somebody? And in fact, I started my business as a sales recruiter, helping people find the right salespeople. And I quickly learned that it's often not the salespeople that are the problem. So I wanted to give you some tips to understand before you hire or fire your next salesperson, how to know if it's the salesperson that's the problem or if it's something else. Hi, Marlene. Good morning. So I'm going to give you some tips of what I do when I first take a look at a company to see what the problem is. Because often the first thing people ask me is, who should I fire? Unfortunately, that's the stinky part of my job, is that I have to come in, say hello, and then say goodbye to some people. But it's necessary, and I'll let you know what my process is, so that if you're DIYing it, you can replicate what I do. Of course, the easiest way to figure it out is to hire an expert like me to come in and take a look and see where the problem is, so that you're not trying to solve the wrong problem, right? So hiring, as you know, finding the right salespeople is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and unless you have tons of experience, you don't even really know when they come on board if they're going to work out. Sometimes you have to wait like 6 months to see if you made the right decision, right? So it's really expensive to hire. Typical corporate environments, the stats are 30 to 40K per new hire, as far as all the time that goes into it, and the advertising and training and onboarding and all that. So when you're thinking about firing someone, it's a very costly decision. It's gonna cost money to replace them. So before we do that, let's figure out if they're the right person. If it's the person that's the problem or them. And also consider that no matter what size your sales organization, you're always going to have people at the top, you're always going to have people at the bottom, and then you're going to have most of the people right in the middle. So you'll have your star performers, and then you'll have your struggling performers, and then in the middle you'll have kind of everyone that's just floating in the average category. And it might be as tempting as it is to say, well, I'm just going to focus on that 20% and keep adding top performers to my team. The reality is that the better you get at moving the needle for the other 60%, that's where you're going to bring in the most value. Whether you're a coach or a trainer or an entrepreneur who's training their own salespeople, the best investment you can make is in that middle chunk of people, getting them to move from average to superior. So that's what coaching's all about. It's not about making the top 20% better. It's actually the opportunity there is actually less than moving the people from the middle to the top, right? So that's what we focus on. So instead of getting rid of those middle people, let's talk about how we can improve everything else besides the salesperson. So the first thing I do is I make sure that there are clear accountability standards and activity expectations, and that they're being measured and tracked at least on a weekly basis. Well, on a weekly basis, period. I think more than that is unnecessary. And the reason for that is often I come in and we don't know whether or not to to fire somebody, and I ask, well, what were the expectations? What were the expectations that you've set and the criteria? So you can say, okay, well, you didn't meet these criteria, so it's time to go. Often those criteria don't exist. Those hard lines of you need to do X, Y, Z in order to keep your role at this company. So activity and accountability. And then within that, activity itself is a huge number that I look at. So before I even change anything else, I'll on day one, after we've defined their dreams and goals and how we can get the salespeople to where they want to be, I get them to start doing more activity. Even if you don't increase your sales skill at all, if you up your activity, then you'll get better results. So everything else constant, you increase your activity, you're going to get better results at the end, right? Makes sense. So the first thing I look at is making sure they're doing enough outbound activity. So follow-ups, outbound lead gen, depending on how your organization is developed, is how they handle lead gen. But at the minimum, follow-ups, because the stats are the average deal takes 8 follow-ups to close. And most average salespeople are only following up twice before they let go of a deal. In their heads, they think, well, they must not want it if they're not responding to me. But the stats show, the Marketing Sherpa did a great report on this, that it takes 8 follow-ups. So number one, I'm going to make sure everyone's following up at least 8 times. So do you have clear accountability and activity? Number 2 is, how's your sales process? The average closing rate would compare to the industry averages for what you're selling. But the average closing rates across the board are anywhere between 15 and 25%. And in tech, it's closer to 15%. That's average, but the top performers are reporting up to 80% closing rates. So that'll give you a measurement stick, because especially if you're working within a small organization or your small business, it could, you're measuring against each other, but you can measure, against outside organizations as well to let you know if you're doing well inside your company. So we target to go for 50%. And that'll be the average of 80 and 20% would be a 50% team-wide closing ratio. So if your team isn't performing and your top performers aren't hitting 80% closing ratios, then I'd say there's definitely something with your process that can be improved, because your top people should be leading the game with 80% close ratios. So now I know we could definitely dig in and diagnose what's going on with the sales process, that the deals aren't closing. And then number 3 is, we did 2, accountability and sales process. Number 3, are they getting the coaching that they need? Are they being being coached on overcoming those mindset hurdles? Because you can give them the tools and the processes. Sales is a mind, body, soul experience. So you can give them the body or the process. You can give them the mind, or it's the psychology of selling. And then there's the soul. There's the who you are, who you're bringing to the table, that helps you apply all of those in an optimal way, the mindset of selling. And then, and that's very much on an individual basis, helping people identify and work through those mindset hurdles, which is basically what sales coaching is. So as a manager, you need to be a coach and a manager and a leader and all those things at different times. And then finally, I'm going to ask you to look at your compensation plan. So is your compensation plan reflecting the goals of the company? And is it regarding top performers, are we giving them a reason to stay with us long term? Because I see a lot of compensation plans where there's really if someone's offering a better deal, there's really no reason to stay. And I want you to make sure that you're keeping your top performers with a compensation plan that has short-term and long-term yield and payoff, so that they have a reason to stay 5+ years and beyond to help you grow to the next level. And also within shorter time frame periods, that your compensation meets what you actually want the team to produce. So I'm going to sign off for today. I'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful week and let me know if you have any questions. Bye. Thanks for joining.